In a certain country, income tax is assessed as follows. There is no tax on income up to $10,000. Any income over $10,000 is taxed at a rate of 10% and up to an income of $20,000. And any income over $20,000 is taxed at 15%. We want to sketch the graph of the tax rate R as a function of the income I. Okay, so we want to be able to sketch the graph, so we need to look at this as a function composed of three lines, which is graphed on the coordinate plane with the horizontal axis labeled as I in dollars, and the vertical axis is labeled R, which is in percent. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is take a look at the first line. Now the first line is going to start at the origin and goes horizontally to the right until it ends at the close point of 10,000, because it's saying that there is no tax on income up to $10,000. So that means we're starting at the origin and then we're going to this close point, which represents 10,000. Okay, so that means that we have 0% tax up until that amount. Okay, so now we want to take a look at the second line. Okay, so the second line is now going to start at an open point here, and it's going to go to the right horizontally until it ends at the close point of $20,000. Okay, so why is that? Okay, well here, any income that's over $10,000 is at a tax rate of 10%, which is up to an income of $20,000. And here, this represents 10%. So this is the 10% tax on anything that is over $10,000 up to $20,000, which is this ordered pair here. Okay, now we want to take a look at the third line. Okay, and so the third line is any income that's over $20,000 is taxed at 15%. So that means it's going to go horizontally to the right until it exits the window. So therefore, here's our 15%. So we do not tax it at 20,000, but anything above that 20,000 is going to be taxed on 15%. And therefore this represents our first part of the graph. Okay, now let's take a look at the next part. How much tax is assessed on the following incomes? So if we have $12,000, we know that over that $12,000 is going to have a 10% tax. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's break this down. So we have $12,000. So we know that the first 10,000 is going to have a 0% tax plus the additional 2,000, which is going to have the 10% tax. So let's go ahead and do that. So we know that we're going to have 0% of the $10,000 plus the 10% of the $2,000. So now if we take 0, multiply it by 10,000, we get 0. And then 0.10 of 2,000 is going to give us 200. So therefore the tax assessed on the $12,000 is going to be $200. Now the second part of this question is, on $28,000, what is the tax that is assessed on? The tax is going to be assessed on $18,000. So let's go ahead and break that down. So we know that we have $28,000. Okay, so for the first $10,000, we know that there's going to be 0 tax on that. So 0% tax. Anything beyond the $20,000 is now going to be an additional $10,000. So that's going to have a 10% tax. And now anything over the $20,000, which is $8,000, is going to have a 15% tax. Okay, and we know that this has a 0% tax. So let's go ahead and solve. So we know that we have 0% tax. So 0% is 0 times 10,000, plus 10% is 0.10 of 10,000, plus 15%, which is 0.15 of 8,000. So that means we're going to have 0 plus 1,000 plus 15% of 8,000 is 1,200. And so when we add those together, we're going to get a total of 2,200. So we can see here the tax is assessed on the $18,000, which is the 10,000 and 8,000. So therefore, we would say that 2,200 is what's being taxed on the 28,000. Okay, so now in part C, we want to sketch the graph of the total assessed taxed T as a function of the income I. So it says here that there is a 0% tax assessed on the first $10,000 of income. So there's a line segment from the origin to the point 10,000, 0. Okay, now the second, there is a $1,000 taxed assessed on 20,000. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So the first one we know is 10,000. So there's no tax. But on 20,000, when we get to the next, we have a $10,000 over the $10,000. So therefore, again, when we take a look at this, we have the following. We have 0% or 0 of the first 10,000 plus 10% of the next 10,000, which gives us 0 plus 1,000, and that gives us $1,000. Okay, so that means now we're going to 20,000, 1,000. Okay, now the tax on 30,000 is what? Well, we know that the first 10,000 has a 0% tax, and we know that there is a 10% tax on the next 10,000, and then there is going to be a 15% tax on the next 10,000. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 0 times 10,000, and then we have 10% of the next 10,000, plus we have 15% of the next 10,000. So therefore we end up with 0 plus 1,000 plus 1,500, and therefore that gives us 2,500. So how are we going to graph this? Well, let's take a look here. So the function is going to be composed of 3 connected lines, is graphed on the coordinate plane with the horizontal axis labeled I in dollars and the vertical axis is labeled T in dollars. So let's talk about the first line segment. So the first line segment, okay, is going to represent the one that starts at the origin and goes horizontally to the right until it ends at the close point of 10,000 zeros. So here, we're going here, and there is our first line segment. Okay. And then our second line segment, well, that tells us that we are being taxed $1,000 on that $20,000. So that means now it is going to go up from this point to 20,000, 1,000, and then the third line then begins where the second line ends, and that's going to go up an additional $2,500. So here we can label that this represents $2,500 increase. And the initial one gone up 1,000 because of the tax. And therefore that represents our last graph.